Welcome to This Might Be Personal, Episode 7 When the Cape Falls Off. People tell me all the time that I'm strong. Sometimes they tell my boys how lucky they are to have a mom who never gives up. At karate, I'm there so much that some of the kids joke that I should just become a coach. Some of them jokingly call me mom. They'll ask me to come record their kata, or they'll ask me if I saw their last fight. And I smile because I know what they see. They see a mom who is always there, the one cheering from the sidelines, the woman who survived a stroke and fought her way back, the woman who trains with kettlebells, the woman who keeps getting back up. And they're not wrong. That woman is me, but she's not all of me. I tell my boys they can do anything. I tell them to be brave. I tell them not to give up. I tell them not to let fear make their decisions. I say those words so easily. But the truth is, I'm afraid. I'm afraid more often than I want anyone to know. I'm the woman who can stand in front of a room and act like I know exactly what I'm doing and still be afraid to drive into Chicago alone for a doctor's appointment. I can tell everyone I'm doing great and then lose my words in the middle of a sentence. I can talk about how far I've come and secretly feel ashamed every time something reminds me that I'm not completely recovered. And sometimes I feel like a fraud. Because how do you stand in front of your children and tell them to be fearless when you're still carrying so much fear yourself? How do you tell them they can do anything when there are still so many things you aren't sure you can do? That's the part of recovery I don't think we talk about enough. The part after everyone starts telling you how good you're doing. Because I am doing good, really good. But doing good doesn't mean everything is easy. Sometimes recovery looks like standing in my kitchen. The television is on. One of my boys is asking me a question. The other one is telling me a story. The dogs are barking. Dinner is cooking. My phone buzzes. Something needs to be finished for work. Someone wants me to watch a new karate move, and every single thing matters. That's the problem. Every voice matters. Every story matters. Every mom, watch this matters. So my brain tries to take all of it in until it can't. My occupational therapist once drew me a picture, the Titanic navigating through icebergs. She told me that was my brain, trying to navigate all of the stimuli around me. And I have never forgotten that drawing. In fact, it's hung up in my workspace. Because everyone else sees the ship. I see the ice, the television, the questions, the lights, the phone, the decisions, the interruptions, the sounds layered on top of other sounds. All of those little things beneath the surface that nobody else realizes I'm trying to navigate. And sometimes I hit one. My frustration boils up so hot that the tears don't even stream anymore. They explode. My voice will get louder in those moments. So sometimes I yell. Sometimes I hear myself asking my own children, why don't you understand how hard this is for me? And almost as soon as I hear myself say it, I hate it. Because how dare I put that burden on them? They are kids. They're supposed to be loud. They're supposed to tell me stories while I'm doing something else. They're supposed to fight with each other and roll around and wrestle in the living room and yell, "Mom, watch." They're supposed to be kids. And I want to be the mom who can take all of it in. I want to be singing, making jokes, listening to their stories, cheering on one of them while they tackle the other, while I'm doing whatever else I need to do at the same time. That's the mom that I remember being. It's who I still am until sometimes my brain just can't keep up. Those are the moments when the mask breaks, and I hate them because I can talk about my progress. I can be proud of how far I've come. I can make an entire podcast about rebuilding my life. But privately, I still carry so much shame about the moments when I can see that I'm not completely recovered. And then I look at my boys. Their eyes get big and then they soften. I've watched it happen. They realize I'm not angry because they've done something terrible. They see that I'm hurting, and everything about them and the situation changes. They get quieter, calmer, gentler. Sometimes one of them comes to sit with me. Sometimes they give me space. And sometimes I point to that drawing, the Titanic, the icebergs. I try to explain, this is what my brain feels like. And after I've raised my voice, I go back. I apologize. I tell them I'm sorry. I tell them they didn't deserve for me to yell. I tell them that sometimes my brain gets so overwhelmed that I don't handle it the way I want to or the way I should. And they tell me they know. Then they say, "We're sorry it's so hard for you." That's how I know. They're not apologizing for being kids. They're not saying sorry because they think they're in trouble. They're sorry that it's hard for me. They're sorry because they know I want to listen. They know I want to laugh. They know I want to sing. They know I want to watch. And somehow these two wonderful kids understand something I'm still trying to learn myself. Some things can't be fixed just because you desperately want to fix them. Sometimes it just takes time. They're so much wiser than I expect children to be. And some days they offer me more grace than I know how to offer myself. And then, because apparently having an overwhelmed brain doesn't stop me from adding things to my plate, I decide we're going to homeschool. Because I see my boys at school, I see how quickly they think, I see how much they want to learn. I see them being asked to work at a pace that doesn't always match what they're capable of. They're so gifted, so curious. And I keep thinking, what would happen if we gave them room to grow? So I decide we're going to do it. And I'm excited. I'm genuinely so excited. I can picture what their education could look like. I can picture them chasing a question as far as they want to take it. And I can picture them thriving. But there's another voice underneath all of that excitement saying, what if you can't do this? If I'm already overwhelmed, can I really homeschool two children? If I already have moments when my brain is begging everyone to stop talking, do I really have what it takes to create an environment where their curiosity gets to be loud? What if I take them out of school because I believe I can give them something better and then I fail them? I tell my boys they can do hard things, and then I lie awake wondering if I can. But we've started a little bit of the schooling. And you know what? It was great. We worked, we learned, we talked, we laughed, we followed questions. It wasn't perfect, and it didn't need to be. And somewhere in there, I realized I've been holding myself to a standard I don't even hold my children to. I don't tell them, be perfect. I tell them, try, keep going. You can do hard things. And then life handed me a chance to find out whether I actually believed any of that. I had a follow up appointment with my stroke specialists at Rush, downtown Chicago. Normally, Adam would come with me, he would be the driver, and he always helps remember the questions. He always takes notes. He's the brain in the room when mine gets tired. But this time he couldn't get off work. Other people were already off, and there just wasn't a way to make it work. So I had two choices: delay the appointment until November or drive myself. This would be my longest drive since I had the stroke, and that terrified me. So I planned. Of course, I planned. I thought about the route, the traffic, the parking, the time, everything I could possibly control. And because I was determined not to be late, not to get overwhelmed, I left more than 2 hours early. More than 2 hours. And traffic was miserable. Absolutely miserable. After all of the planning, all of the worrying, all of the extra time, I was still late. And you know what happened? Nothing terrible. No one was rude. No one was unkind. No one told me I had ruined everything. They still saw me. I still had my appointment. All of the fear, all of the planning, all of the pressure to execute this perfectly, and I didn't, and I was still okay. They checked me over and checked me over, and we talked about everything that was going on, where I am now, what has improved, what still feels different. And somewhere in that appointment, I told them something I was probably more excited to tell them than I had expected. I drove here myself. And saying it out loud, I felt proud, actually proud. Because before my stroke, driving myself to a doctor's appointment downtown wouldn't have been an accomplishment. It wouldn't have been a story. It would have just been a Wednesday. But this Wednesday, it mattered. I had gotten myself there. I walked in by myself. I asked my own questions. I listened to the answers. I took my own notes. I was navigating the ice. And then at the end of the appointment, I graduated from the stroke clinic. Graduated. I've spent so much time asking myself if I'm recovered. And somehow I've spent even more time looking for evidence that I'm not. Every time I get overwhelmed, every word I can't find, every moment I lose patience, every time the mask cracks, every time the cape falls off. And there I was, in the place that had been measuring my recovery, being told I didn't need to come back. I had driven myself there. I asked my own questions. I took my own notes. I successfully navigated the ice. And maybe that's what I've been missing. Graduating didn't mean everything was perfect. It didn't mean there wouldn't still be icebergs. It didn't mean my brain would never get overwhelmed again. It didn't mean the cape would never fall off. It meant I'd made enough progress that those things didn't have to stop me from thriving. Maybe recovery isn't getting back to a place where everything is easy again. Maybe it's getting far enough that the hard things don't get to decide how big your life can be. Because my boys have seen the cape fall. They've seen the fear, they've seen the tears, they've seen me overwhelmed. They've seen the parts of me I still struggle to accept. And when the cape falls off, they don't ask me why I dropped it. They don't tell me to be stronger. They don't tell me to hurry up and put it back on. They pick it up for me. They place it over my shoulders. They fasten it around my neck. Not because they need a superhero, but because they love their mom. Maybe that's the part I've always had backwards. I stand in front of my boys telling them how to be brave while worrying that my own fear makes me a fraud. But maybe they were never learning bravery from a mother who wasn't afraid. Maybe they've been watching a mother who is afraid and keeps going. A mom who sometimes hits an iceberg, whose cape falls off sometimes, who apologizes. A mom who tries again. A mom who left more than 2 hours early and was still late and kept going. I tell my boys they can do anything. I tell them to be brave. I tell them not to let fear make their decisions. And this last Wednesday, I finally listened. I drove myself downtown. I walked into the stroke clinic and I graduated.